there is no perfect parenting, right? But there is a such thing as lazy parenting.
Absolutely.
And your child did not ask to come into this world. So it is, at the end of the day, your responsibility to parent your child. Hey, this is Amanda Wells.
And this is Derek Wells.
Welcome
To
to the
the
Wells
Wells
of
of Well
Wealth
podcast.
podcast, where we bring you the latest insights and strategies for digging deep and tapping into the wealth of knowledge that can help you achieve your financial, relationship, family, and faith goals.
Let's do it.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Wells of Wealth podcast.
We back in the building.
We are back, and I'm so ready for today's discussion.
It's going to be a great discussion
Yes.
about these kids.
These children. Oof.
Lord help today. Lord help today.
Help us. But as always, we got to get started with our words of wealth.
All right. So today, the words of wealth. There is no such thing as being a perfect parent. Just be a real one, by Sue Atkins.
And that's a real
That's
statement.
real. Yeah.
There was no manual with each kid that I had. There was no manual that's like, okay, here's how you raise Dion. Here's how you raise Donovan. Here's how you raise Daniel. There's no manual.
Yeah.
Each kid comes into this world with their own personality, their own passions, their own will, and you're just stuck trying to help them navigate life. Yeah.
And it's funny because I remember me and Charles we all used to sit around the dinner table and debate about do kids come in with a blank slate? Like, can you
The
just
blank slate
pretty
method.
much mold them into exactly what you want them to be? And having 3 kids, you realize they all are designed differently.
Absolutely.
They already come pre-made.
Yeah, they're pre-programmed. Like God has
Yeah.
a chip in them,
Yep.
and they're here for their reason, their purpose. They're going to behave in a manner that there's not
Yeah,
much you
yeah.
can do about it as a parent. You just
Yeah.
have to help them learn how to manage their behaviors.
Yeah.
So we're really just managers.
Yeah. That's
at the
a
end of the
great way to
day.
put it.
Yeah, parents are literally their children's manager.
Exactly. And I think but on the flip side, it can be detrimental or it can be very prosperous depending on how you parent.
Yeah, how you
So-
manage them.
Yeah, how you manage them. Yeah.
If you're in the acting business and you have an amazing manager that's out here grinding for you to make sure you get every opportunity possible, you should be a pretty
Yeah.
successful actor.
True.
Now, if you have a manager that's like,
I get you what I can get you.
Yeah, I figure it out, you know,
when
well,
I get around to it.
exactly,
Yeah.
you're not going to have a very long career. So it's all about how you manage and help your children develop into adults, right?
That's true.
So before we get into just kind of our questions and our story times, I want to talk about the different parenting types that there are. So recently I was watching on Hulu, there's this parenting show. I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically talking about parenting styles.
Yeah.
And it's a range of people from all over the country. They all have a different way of parenting. And from as soon as you started watching the show, you could tell the parents that were going to fail
Yeah.
the test, the parenting test. And you could tell the parents that you're like, okay, I have faith in their kids that they may do the right thing.
Yeah.
And so they set these kids up with a series of different tests and see how they react without the parent present. There were some where the parent was present and they wanted to see how they interacted with their child. And so although this doesn't go through all of those parenting styles, because there were some I had never even heard of. They were just, but so there's 4 major types of parenting styles. The first one is authoritative, authoritarian, permissive, and uninvolved.
Okay.
So a little bit about each one. The authoritarian parent You believe that kids should be seen and not heard. When it comes to rules, you believe it's my way or the highway. And you don't really take your child's feelings into consideration. Those are typically the parents that are famous for saying, because I told you so.
Okay.
Which growing up in the
Yeah,
90s and
that's
80s,
how most kids were
yeah,
parented.
that's
Yeah.
pretty standard, right?
Yeah.
Then there's the authoritative parenting style.
Okay.
With this parenting style, you put a lot of effort into creating and maintaining a positive relationship with your child. You explain the reasons behind your rules. You set limits, enforce rules, give consequences, but you take your child's feelings into consideration.
Okay.
Permissive, you set rules, but you don't really enforce them. So, like empty threats. You don't give out consequences very often, and you think your child will learn best with little interference from you. So, more of a little bit of a hands-off approach.
Gotcha.
And then there's uninvolved parents. So, those are parents that don't really ask about your child's schooling or homework. You rarely know where your child is or who they're with. You don't spend much time with your child. And so those are the 4 major types
Okay.
of parenting styles. So
Give me the first one again.
the first one is the authoritarian parenting style.
And what's the second one?
And then the second one is authoritative.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
So authoritative.
So I think I started off as a authoritarian, and then I went more to a authoritative.
Yes, I would agree. I would agree.
Yeah.
Because both of us, for the most part, were raised in that authoritarian parenting style.
Yes.
Which I think most kids from
Our
age,
generation,
yeah.
millennials, were raised that way because most of their parents were raised that way.
Right. Well, they were strict.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it went into more of the authoritarian parenting style. And I think now we're seeing more of the authoritative style within like our friend group. So how were you raised? What's some background on from your perspective, your childhood? How were your parents? What was it like growing up in the Wells household?
Okay, so my mom was on the stricter side. Very routine, had us on a schedule. I have a twin brother, and then my older brother is 2 years older than me. So we were pretty close in age. So especially in our younger years, she had to make sure she had us on a routine.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot to manage 3 young kids.
Trust me, I know. I get it.
And we know that firsthand.
I was gonna say, and I respect it. Like I do. I respect that schedule and being able to have systems in place to make sure that things are happening. It is a very involved and strenuous process.
Yes.
To consistently be on a schedule with your kids. And so, what about your dad?
My dad was a little bit more hands off. He would come to like games, major events, but outside of that, he would just really focus on working. And he interacted with us, but not to the magnitude that my mom did.
Right. Yeah.
He was pretty hands off.
Okay.
Very chill, very docile.
I can see that.
And my mom, she was a lot more active. She would take us to events on the weekends. Just that Amanda parent, that very hands-on. Not very. It wasn't a super nurturing household. My mom is more. She's a great boy mom.
Yeah.
She doesn't have all the fluffy,
all the fluff. Yeah.
All the fluff. That's not her. So I didn't get a lot of that, but I mean, all in all, it was a great upbringing.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then we grew up in the church, so very spiritual. My dad was a deacon. My mom was a deaconess.
Okay, deaconess.
She led the usher board when we were younger, so she would. We used to be the kid ushers. So just came up in the.
So yeah, even
80s,
coming
90s.
up in church. I mean, when you're actively involved in church, I think that takes your childhood to a different level as far as just like discipline
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
structure, and
Absolutely.
you're living by a different set of rules, right? So you're not living according to the worldly standard. You're really your parents, from me knowing them for as long as I know them, they are very much so godly people. And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
for your mom is like superwoman.
Superwoman.
Like when
Yeah.
I all the time, like before when we were dating, even up until now with her taking care of all the grandkids,
Grandkids,
and
yeah.
there's 5 of them, like your mom will have everybody dressed out the house on time for church and be there at the early service,
Yeah.
8 o'clock.
And it kind of gave me false expectations of how you would perform.
Yeah, because I'm not. I don't
Cause I'm
meet.
like, my mama did all this. Like, she had breakfast ready. She cooked in the morning before we went to school. Even when we were in high school, she was still cooking for us in the morning. We have a hot meal on the way to school. We'll get ready for school. When we were younger, of course, she had our clothes picked out. Like, she just ran a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
She didn't have any patience for being late, and that's probably where I get that from. So
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, it's time to go. Like
yeah.
once I'm ready to go, everybody else needs to be ready
Everybody
to
else
go.
better be ready to go. And
And that was
everybody's
Peggy
just
Wells.
everybody's
That was Peggy
mad.
Wells.
Like I didn't have no like how you gonna get on us and you just finished getting ready.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that your parents have a very what I would consider standard of their time, especially being in a 2-parent household,
Yeah.
right? So for me, I grew up in a single parent household where I had my mom, and as a younger child before we moved to Texas, I had my granny too. So I kind of had a mix of both because my
Okay.
granny was very much so
That structure
that
piece.
structure, that routine. I remember being a child and having to do homework, and I thought I was cute. Like I'd be doing my little handwriting and have my little bubble letters and all that. She would make me erase all that and be like, "Look,
That's not how
that's
it's
not
supposed to
how
go.
that's supposed to
Yeah.
look. You erase it." Even to this day, I can't erase something and let it show because she ingrained it in my mind so much. Like she was very particular about certain things. And
Yeah.
so with my granny, we had that aspect. She was
Okay.
super old school,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
And then with my mom is a lot more of a free spirit, right? But she also means business.
Yeah.
Like when it comes down to it, there's certain things I know I can't cross my mom on. But at the same time, we grew up with like a TV in our bedroom. We didn't necessarily have a bedtime.
Yeah.
We had all kind of friends over at the house on the weekend. My mom was always super hands-on doing stuff with us. And so it was just a little bit more of a freer atmosphere, I guess you can say. But I don't know if it's just something that was in me or what, because me and my brother are completely different people.
Yeah.
But for me, I just kind of knew what those boundaries were, and I wouldn't step out of those boundaries on occasion.
Yeah.
Yeah, on occasion, but it wasn't often. So I didn't get it.
Okay.
I respected the house rules
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
So my question to you is: so before we even got married, before we had kids, what were some important things that you looked for in your partner to have as a parent? Like, what are some of the things
That's
you
a good
looked
question.
at?
Number one, they need to be led by Christ, like somebody that's spiritual. Because like we talk about in our marriage, like that's always the final say.
Yeah,
We may go back and forth but if I can stand on the word, then you ain't got nothing to argue about.
that's facts.
And having that mutual understanding with both people is very important. So I wanted to make sure that the person I married, i.e. you, had those ingredients. So we could co-parent effectively and have an effective marriage, because That's vital too.
It is.
I didn't growing up. I didn't see a dysfunctional marriage, so I carried that into our marriage. We don't argue in front of kids. We don't. We're not doing crazy. I can remember one argument my parents had, and after that, I never remember. I can never remember them arguing again. And I think that was the same with us. I think one time we argued in front of Dion,
Yeah.
and we were like,
We're not going
"We're
to,
not
we
gonna do
can't do
this
this.
again."
Yeah.
Yeah,
And our kids will see us get into disagreements.
yeah,
They'll see us
yeah,
have conversation about things that we feel a different way about, and they'll see how we resolve it.
yeah.
And I think that's super important. So, because a
Absolutely.
lot of times parents want to portray themselves as perfect
Perfect.
people. And then that gives the child a false reality of what the world looks like and what
Agreed. 100%.
relationships look like.
Yeah.
And so it's important to show conflict between two people, but when you love the person that you're in conflict with, there's ways to solve it that doesn't require raising your
Yelling, yeah.
voice and cussing each other out and all these different
Exactly.
things. And so, yeah, that's important. That's super important. And I think that for me, coming into the marriage from the because I didn't grow up with my dad in the house. So I had a relationship. I have a relationship with my dad, but he wasn't present in my upbringing. To me, it was vital. Like it was essential to make sure that there was a strong male figure in our house that was going to parent my children. Like that was hands down non-negotiable. And I knew in you, seeing how you were raised, how you were brought up, just the person that you were, the values that you held true to your heart, that you were going to be an amazing father. Like I could just see that from young. And so to me, it was like, look, these are, I appreciated you being disciplined and being driven because I knew you would pass that on to our kids.
Yeah.
In my household, as far as what I felt like I was looking for, was just making sure that I kept that loving environment
Yeah.
because I grew up in a very loving environment. I could go and hop in my mom's bed whenever I wanted to. We could watch movies, we could chill out, and our kids do the same thing to this
Yeah.
day. Like I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that we would be on the same page too about just how we loved on our kids and
Yeah.
nurtured our kids.
Yeah. And we have a great balance.
We do.
We have a really good
We have
balance.
a really good
Because
balance.
I typically lean more structured and like rigorment, like routine. You typically lean more free spirited. So I think,
Yeah, to a certain degree, I would say. I think it's I feel like I've been able to create a combo
okay,
of the two.
have you?
Yes, I have. Because and the reason I say that is because on the day-to-day stuff, like especially when the kids were a lot younger,
Okay.
it was me that had to redirect them, that had to
Agreed,
be
agreed,
more in the weeds with them.
Agreed.
Because they were little, they were always underneath me. Early on in our marriage, you had to work a lot. And so I found a good balance in them knowing mom means business. Like she's not playing with
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
But
I
at the
agree.
same time, I'm like, I'm warm and I'm just
Yeah,
warm and
yeah,
fuzzy. That's
yeah.
just who I am. Like I'm a nurturer. So I think we do create a good balance.
Absolutely.
I do.
I agree.
Yeah.
They get what they need,
They get,
for sure.
yeah. So my next question to you is, so when you became a parent, what are some things of your upbringing that you felt like you brought into our house?
So growing up, my parents were not very affectionate. So that was one thing I think subconsciously I longed for. So I made sure I brought that into our house.
Yeah, and
So
you do a really good job with that.
yeah, and one thing I got from Charles, my older brother, is he always say I love you. Like even as brothers, we always tell each other we love them. And so I don't although I knew my parents did love me,
Yeah.
it and back in the 90s, there was something about that word
I
that
don't
people
know.
didn't
Yeah,
really,
because I didn't grow up hearing
yeah,
that
hearing
either.
that.
It wasn't like a, oh, you're headed off to school. Okay, I
Yeah, I
love
love you.
you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was very TV.
Yeah, yeah. So one thing that I wanted to implement in our household is we tell each other we love each other all the time,
Constantly.
constantly. They probably sick of hearing it.
Yeah.
But you're never gonna question it.
Right.
Number one in my actions, and number two in me expressing it verbally to you.
Yeah. And I think that's so important as a male,
Yeah,
as a black male,
yeah,
especially because affection isn't really taught to our black boys and our black men.
yeah,
And it's to me that's one of the most beautiful things that I've been able to witness in our generation is seeing black men embrace each other and truly show love to each other. Like
yeah.
your friendships, I can tell that you and your friends, y'all love each other. There's
Absolutely.
an absolute brotherhood that you
Yeah.
guys show to each other.
And I tell them.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
y'all do. Y'all
yeah.
y'all will tell each other like, "Hey man, I love you, bro." Like just,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's not something that was popular or was even really truly heard of.
Yeah.
I feel like until millennials truly hit the scene and just start being okay with affection and
Absolutely.
you see I can't get it. Michael B. Jordan and
The one he's in Creed with.
yes,
I know you're talking
yes,
about.
I can't think of his name at the
Yeah.
moment, but their brotherhood, like
Yeah, yeah.
seeing that, it just brings joy, and knowing that we're helping to create and foster that environment, and even our boys with their friends, how they are able to express how much they enjoyed hanging out together and
Yeah.
their friendship. They're just a lot more affectionate and a little bit softer. Like it's not
Yeah.
all macho
Yeah, yeah.
all the time. And I love seeing it.
And I think that it's important. Like, I want to teach my sons to be men, to be protectors, to have a hard shell in some aspects of protection. But I want you to be able to tap into your emotions too.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be hard for you if you love somebody to say I love them.
Yeah.
Or it shouldn't be hard for you to give somebody a hug if they're close to you. Like, I want you to be able to tap into both sides.
Yes.
Whereas growing up, especially with young black men, it was more focused on you need to be hard.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, it was more of that vibe that you would get versus, okay, I want you to be a man. Like, I want you to stand up and take care of your responsibilities. I want you to be a
Yes.
good father. I've set the expectations of what manhood really looks like. You being tough and macho man, I mean, that's cool in some aspects.
Yeah.
But unless you out here having to fight people all the time, like, it's important that you understand how the true essence of what a man should look like. It should be somebody that lives up to their word, somebody that's trustworthy, somebody that's well respected, somebody that follows Christ. Because you can't ask people to follow you if you don't have anybody that you're following. You know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying?
Absolutely.
And who are you submitting to?
Yeah, that's
Because you
good.
want to get married and then you want to ask, you're going to eventually ask your wife to
be
submit to you.
Yeah, to be submissive.
Who are you submitting to? Are you
Right.
submitting to yourself? So I'm following you down the path of
You
destruction.
speaking facts.
Are you submitting to God, who I know is going to lead you in the right direction? So your spouse will feel comfortable following you.
Yeah.
So it's just pouring. That's what manhood looks like. Pouring those aspects and that your knowledge and godly wisdom into your kids, so they can know how to navigate life. You know what I'm saying?
That's good, Derek. That's solid. That's
Yeah.
solid advice.
Yeah.
Like I love hearing that. And I don't want to take us off topic, but that was nothing but facts, especially being a man and submitting to God so that your wife can submit to you. I don't
Yeah.
want to take us off topic. That's a
Yeah.
whole nother
Yeah, that's a podcast.
that's a podcast. That's a whole nother
Yeah.
topic, but that's so important. So important.
And from a family standpoint too, like it's important that you have a Christ-centered household, because I always think about, like, there's been times in my life where I kind of strayed away from number one, what I knew God was calling me to do, and then number two, just in my relationship with Him.
Yeah.
But I always knew where to go back
You
to.
knew your foundation
I knew my
always. You
foundation.
knew.
So it
Yeah.
was important for me to, it's important, it is important for me to embed that in our kids so they know
How to come
where to go
home.
back to,
Yeah.
where home is.
Yeah.
And as a kid, I remember experiencing God, and I had a very close relationship with God at an early age.
Yeah.
So when things would happen in my life and I strayed away, I knew where I should go back to.
Absolutely.
And that's what I want to make sure my kids know, how to find that place to go back to, because they're gonna do stupid stuff
I mean, that's
when you go to
kids, right?
college, and
High school.
like it's life gonna be life, and they gonna do
Yeah.
stupid stuff. But I always need you to know where home is.
Right.
I always need you to know what the expectation is for you.
Yeah. And as that, to me, from a woman's perspective, that is a very attractive trait to find in a man. Is someone that knows God, that submits to God, and that will lead you from a perspective of not their own desires, not their own wants, but how they feel God is leading them to lead the family.
Yeah.
Like, that's just, it's attractive. It's
Yeah.
because I know I'm in good hands. Like, you, as a woman, you want to, we're such in this culture of independence, and I don't need a man to do this and I don't need a man to do that. And that's fine. Like,
Yeah.
if that's
Yeah.
what if that's what you're on, that's cool. Like, that's not an issue. But just know that in a marriage, within the confines of a marriage, it's so important to have a husband that's leading you somewhere
Yeah.
and that has their focus on Christ.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then everything else becomes a lot easier.
Agreed.
So,
Agreed. I'm not. I wanted to say something else, but I'm not going to take us down that journey.
all right, just hold it.
Let's
Just hold
go
it. Yeah,
back.
we got to
Let's
get
go
back
back
to
to the
parenting.
parenting.
We got to get back to
Yeah.
parenting. So let me ask you this: how do you feel like you currently parent? Like, what is your current parenting style? Because one, I think it changes as your kids get older, and two, I think it changes with your with your
Yeah.
children
Yeah.
and their personalities. So how do you feel like you currently parent?
I think I started out parenting like my parents parent. So it was more of
The authoritarian
the
vibe.
authoritarian. Do what I ask you to do. Like I don't have to explain myself to you. Which in the essence I still have that to
I
some
was about to
degree.
say you haven't completely lost
Yeah,
that.
but with our kids, I try to educate them on
Yeah.
my decision making. So like with Dion, I will explain in most cases, depending on what mood I'm in.
Yeah.
I will explain myself and articulate my thoughts to him on why I am telling him no, or what risks I see with the decisions that he's making, so he can understand. And typically, me and Dion, we're both very logical people.
Y'all are.
So when I break down why I'm telling you no, then he typically understands it. Like he wanted to get a private TikTok page.
Public.
Public TikTok page. And I went into the room and I sat down and I explained to him all the risk I saw with it, why I didn't feel like that was age appropriate to him. And we just had a in-depth conversation on why I said no.
Yeah.
And he left that conversation understanding why I said no. So it wasn't like I was the bad guy.
Yeah.
It was more like, okay, bro, let me advise you on the reason why I'm telling you no, because this is what you don't see.
Yeah.
You just
That's
see the fun
important.
part of it. You just see,
Yes.
oh, some of my friends got it at their age. No, I'm gonna let you know how I see it at 36 years old. What I see the tremors to giving you that now is
And low key, that's a whole nother episode. Parenting your child during the social media era. That's a whole
facts.
episode. Like
Yeah,
as you're saying that, I'm like, man, like this is something that we were not prepared for, and it is tough to
very
navigate.
tough. Very tough.
Yeah, but that's good. I when you're able to explain yourself and explain your thinking to your child, one, I think it helps them to learn how to think through things from an adult standpoint, because they're eventually going to be adults, so they
Yeah.
have to understand what risks, what things we're looking at. Now with parenting, he's on his way to becoming a teenager. He's a preteen right now. There's gonna be some things we're gonna be able to teach him, tell him, and he's still gonna try to find his own way.
Absolutely.
But in the back of his mind, those things will be there. They'll resonate with him. He'll hear that voice.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing right now, is just putting that voice in his head so
Yeah.
he has a reference point and he
Absolutely.
knows what's going to make my parents proud, what's not going to make my parents proud, what's going to make myself proud
Yeah.
in the end, versus what decisions am I going to make that this can go either way.
Exactly.
So,
Because I think about parenting, not only is there no instruction manual on how to do it, but you don't even know how the world will look like when they get there.
yeah.
Like in 30, 20 years from now, who knows how the world is going to look?
Who knows?
As fast as technology is advancing, like all I can do is give you what I have.
Yeah.
I can give you the best of me. I can teach you foundational principles that I know work to navigate life.
Yeah.
And then you got to take the baton and you got to run with it. So my goal and our goal is just to raise men that can navigate in any environment with integrity, with honesty, and be respected no matter where you go.
Yeah.
And if you have those key elements, I gotta trust that and God, of course, as the center of your life, and you're listening to Him as you move. I gotta trust that that's going to be enough for you to be successful in this world. That I don't know how it's gonna look in 20, 30 years.
Yeah, that's scary, but it's so. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
ultimately every generation has had to do that. Every generation has had to parent a generation of children that were going to be completely different than them, and so we're just repeating history. It's just things are advancing a lot faster
Yeah.
than they were before.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when the foundation is solid, the rest, it just comes into play.
Agreed.
It comes into play. What about with the little ones? What's your so Donovan is 7, Daniel 6. What do you feel like your parenting style is for them?
So kind of with all our kids, my goal is just to identify their weaknesses and their strengths, but really parent to their struggles. So and I have to show up totally different for each kid.
Yes.
So like for Donovan, he's a little bit more sensitive.
Yeah.
So the way I speak to him, the tone I use, I have to be a little bit more careful with.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, he'll chop off and talk back real quick. So I have to get him in line. And then Daniel, I feel like he's our 6-year-old,
Daniel's
and
parenting himself.
yeah. I mean, Daniel, he know how to regulate himself. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't have to say too much.
Yeah, he's just highly confident in
Yeah,
himself.
very wise.
Very
for his
wise
age.
and very confident.
Yeah,
So you have to
yeah.
just kind of wheel him in a little bit when his confidence is shining through.
I have to
little bit
make
too
him be a
much.
little bit more humble.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, that's the parenting I have to do with him.
Yeah, and so like for
What about you though? With,
yeah, I was
with our
gonna
youngest?
say for me with the younger two, I am really just trying to dig into their interests, and help them to become great at whatever it is that they're interested in.
Yeah.
They're at a fun age where we did a lot of the hard work up front. And as parents, between the ages of 0 and 5, that is where you're truly building the character of your children.
Agreed.
That is where they learn right from wrong, how they can speak to you, how to speak to other adults, what's frowned upon, what's acceptable. And so we spent the past 5 years plus pouring that into our children so that they understand how to be respectful citizens, how to be what we expect out of them when they're at school, when they're away from us at friends' houses. We've done an amazing job, and I'm going to give us a pat on our back because we truly have done an amazing
Yeah.
job with teaching them what our standards are. So now I get to kind of enjoy the parenting a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's not as much discipline, and it's not as much handing out consequences as it was before. Now I'm able to truly just kind of vibe out with our kids and have fun, and but along the way still teaching them what's expected of them as far as in the house, cleaning
Yeah.
up, taking care of each other, not speaking negatively to each other, standing up for what you think is right. So it's where I've kind of shifted with them from the more basic skills of
Yeah.
being raised to now let's talk about how do you become young adults,
Yeah. Yeah.
or
We're having
I'll say
conversation how they
preteens.
interact with your friends.
Yes,
for,
what's
like,
appropriate, what's not appropriate. And then with Dion, it's just a totally different
Yeah.
vibe. Like me and Dion's my little homie. We're just right now. I'm just enjoying hearing him progress through middle school, hearing his stories with his friends, and helping to guide him through all of that.
Yeah.
We have a lot of open conversations about what's going on in his life and what he sees with what his friends are doing and relationship talks and all of that. So
Yeah.
it's fun now
Yeah.
because I'm really having to have real life conversations with him that I enjoy.
And you get to see the fruits of your labor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can always know a tree from the fruit that it bears. And I feel like we're bearing good fruit with our kids.
I agree.
We've gotten a lot of compliments from our friends.
Friends, family, and people that don't even know us.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
We've literally had people come up to us at a restaurant and just be like, "Wow, like your kids are incredible. My kids would never
Yeah,
sit
yeah.
through a dinner and not be on the floor or on the iPad or doing this and doing that." But we've done an amazing job just teaching them expectations, holding them accountable, and showing them love along the way.
Yeah, yeah.
One thing I've learned with kids, period, is parents or adults in general want to demand respect from kids. You cannot demand respect.
It still
You
has
have
to
to
be
earn
earned. Yeah,
respect. And once that respect is earned and they feel that they're safe with you and they know that they can confide in you and that you care about them and you love them, it's a lot easier for them to respect the boundaries that you put in place.
Yeah,
And I saw that from when I was teaching up until when we had our own kids, and even with other kids that come to our house. It's about showing a respect and a love
Yeah.
that allows them to feel safe and to know that, hey, with this discipline comes love. And so I'm going to talk to you like you're my own child because I have high standards for you too.
exactly. Yeah, because if you come over here, like
Hey, you got to be willing to,
you gotta fall in line. Like,
yeah, you got to be willing to let your child be parented
yeah.
here.
And if you can't be parented, you can't come.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a rule.
That
rule
is,
at
yeah.
the wells.
And the kids know.
Yeah.
The kids will tell their friends like, hey, my dad means business. Like, you better
Because
listen.
when I ask you to do something, that becomes my expectation.
Yeah.
And I will tell you why I'm asking you to do it. But if you're gonna tell me you're not gonna do it, then
We got some
this
stuff to
ain't the
talk.
place for
Yeah, I'm
you.
gonna say we got some stuff to talk about. It's time to get the parent on the
This
phone
ain't the
because
place for you. This
yeah,
ain't gonna work. And and I would say our friends are doing a really good job too.
yes, for sure.
And we all have full reign to parent like we need to
And
parent.
that is another thing that's been lost
Yeah,
in just
yeah.
in the world period. People are so sensitive about their kids, they're not willing to allow other members of the community to help parent their child.
That's true.
And growing up,
That's what
like,
our generation. I don't know when that
I don't
became a
know.
thing.
Everybody's so, you can't tell my kid nothing. Don't,
Yeah.
even as a teacher, it was always this kind of, you had to, it was a balancing act with parents and the kids because a lot of the parents didn't want you to say anything to their kid, but they also didn't want to say anything to their kid.
Yeah, yeah.
And so my classroom, I'm like, hey, once these kids step in here, like, I'm Mama Wells at this
Yeah,
point because I'm
yeah.
going to teach you guys and discipline you guys from a perspective of setting my expectations. And if you don't meet those expectations, there'll be consequences.
And to be honest with you, especially at one of the schools that you were at, it was Title I. A lot of those kids were not getting that at home.
Absolutely.
And even I would come up there and regulate sometimes.
Yes.
And it
Yes.
would and you would see how they responded to a male figure. When I would come up there and like I shut it down. And I wasn't acting crazy with the kids, but they knew, oh, Mr. Wells coming up here. Let me act like I got some
Yeah.
sense.
But they also look forward to you coming. And so that shows how much kids gravitate towards having discipline and structure.
Yeah.
Like they knew, okay, Mr. Wells is coming up here. Let me do something to make him proud. Because you were like the guest appearance in the
Yeah.
classroom. Like, oh, like they would be excited when you would come unless they knew they were in
So
trouble.
let me tell the story on that. So
Okay.
Amanda was at a Title I school. It was tough. It was tough.
It was a tough school.
And so she was like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it. I'm on my last
Last everything.
and so I on my half day when I was working in corporate, I would come on Fridays and just sit with you. And because that was typically your craziest day, Friday,
Yeah, the
kids ready
kids
to
don't care
go.
on Friday.
And I would just come up there and I'd just sit with you. And then I would just watch you do your lesson plans. I would talk to the kids, just be that authoritative figure if you needed
Yeah,
it.
you're basically like a classroom volunteer.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
a room parent, but
Yeah.
for me, you
Yeah.
came to help me, not them.
Because I was like, I need her to get through this year. We need this money. I can't afford her to quit. So let me go up here and try to regulate on these
And
kids.
it was very helpful, and the kids respected you and they appreciated,
Yeah.
when you would come out, and they really would be excited to make you proud. Like if I
Yeah.
told them you were coming up here, they'd be like, "Oh, can I show him what I did on my test today?" Or like they would be excited.
Yeah.
And so kids need discipline.
They do.
They need discipline.
They need structure.
They need structure. And so many parents, well, I won't even get into that. Let's just, anywho, going like, so let's just keep the conversation flowing.
Okay.
What has been your, what's something as a parent that you're still working on?
The what's it? The first one, the
Authoritarian.
authoritarian. That aspect of, well, let me say this: when I get irritated, then I'm
All
not
the
in a
other
space.
parenting
Yeah, all that
styles
other
go
stuff
out
go
the window.
go out the window. It's do what I ask you to do because I asked you to do it. I don't feel like explaining myself to you.
Yeah.
I go to in that mode. And I think there's times that I'm not going to explain myself about every single thing.
Yeah,
So
I mean, especially when it
it's a
comes to
balance.
their safety,
Yeah.
or if it's a certain situation where there's respect involved or something
Yeah.
like that. I mean, They
Yeah,
know.
yeah. But I would say a lot. I can work on being more patient, a little bit more understanding
Yeah,
with our kids. That's probably are the two things that I could hone in on
that's fair. That's
because I
good.
can go from 0 to 100 real quick,
Yeah, you
and I
can.
would,
You absolutely
and I would
can.
like to be able to to tone that down some because in the business world or just in dealing with other people in general, I'm not like that.
Yeah,
So I need to make sure that just because it's a comfortable atmosphere where I don't have to necessarily overthink sometimes, I'm still giving them the best version of me.
that's good. I'll hold you
Yeah.
accountable.
All right. I believe you. What about you? What can you work on?
I am working on schedules.
Yeah, that's tough.
It's so tough because as an entrepreneur, you're constantly having things take you off course. You can have your whole day planned out, and something goes left, and then your whole day is just kind of down the drain. So I'm really working hard on creating a schedule that the kids can stick to, even when I'm not there to manage the schedule.
Okay.
So, for example, our afternoon duty. So before we had Gia to kind of help move things along. And so now that she's not here to help us with after school anymore, it's on us to make sure that as soon as the kids come home, they're getting a snack, they're doing homework, getting ready for after school activities. They're in basketball, they're in piano, they're in soccer. There's like they have so
Yeah.
much going on. And then we still have to cook dinner or pick up dinner. And so that from 3:30 until 8:30 their bedtime, that is a tough
Yeah.
time for
Yeah.
me to try to get everything done and stop my day for the most part around 3:30 to help them get
Whatever.
everything
Yeah.
done. So I'm working on helping them to be more efficient in their schedule, and being more helpful around the house and setting those expectations so that I'm not running around yelling at them when
Yeah.
they haven't done something that's,
Yeah.
that I need them to do.
And we need to work on them cleaning up behind themselves.
Yeah, well, we've been working on that for a
Yeah.
long time, and we just we're failing at that. I don't know. I think it's just boys. I don't
Yeah.
know. It is a
Yeah.
struggle.
I mean, I need to work on cleaning
I was about
behind
to
myself.
say,
So
like, clearly it's just boys. Y'all send help. Send me on a spa day or
it's a
something. Get
struggle.
me
It's
up
a
out of here with all
struggle.
these guys. I pick up more clothes than anything else
Yeah.
in this entire house.
I can't even get mad at Donovan when he because I do the same thing, and it's not on purpose. My mind just goes somewhere else,
His does
and
too.
then I walk back in the room. I'm like, I didn't pick up none of my stuff.
And it's so hard because I'm like, I want to yell at these kids about this, but then I got to go downstairs and yell at you too. So how do you find the balance and
The
act? I
struggle is
don't know.
real.
The
Huh?
struggle's real. Yeah, we're gonna work on it.
He ain't through with me yet.
He's not. He's clearly not. He's not done with this house yet. So
Still working on it.
it is time for my favorite part of the show, which is Wealth
Wealth Avenue.
Avenue, where we give you tips on your road to success. And so, what is your takeaway? What do you want to leave our viewers with from this episode?
I would say in parenting, like we said, there's no roadmap. You just have to focus on giving your kids the best version of you. Pouring into them the things that you feel like are essential for them to be able to navigate life as adults.
Yes.
And you have to start at a very early age embedding in them the key elements that they need to be prosperous in society.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't, it is very hard after they get out of a stage of adolescence to go back and redo what you didn't do when they were 3, 4, 5, 6,
Yeah.
and those key developmental years where they're building those building blocks, and and that's done in two ways. Number one, how you sit down and talk to them and teach them, but number two, in just what they see.
Yes.
And if you're not portraying what you want them to be, then that is a key part of their learning process.
It absolutely is.
So that's what I would say.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
That's excellent advice.
What about you?
My key takeaway is one, as parents, we are all doing the best that we can.
Yeah.
And so back to your quote, there is no perfect parenting, right? But there is a such thing as lazy parenting.
Absolutely.
And your child did not ask to come into this world. So it is, at the end of the day, your responsibility to parent your child, to give them the tools to be successful in this life, to nurture them, to love them, to show them discipline, to guide them to becoming adults. Because one day they may be someone's parent and they're going to pull on those things that you showed them, and that may or may not be how they show up for their child. So make sure that in your parenting journey, have a community of people that you can call on, people that you can ask for advice. If you see something that's working in someone's household, like I'm quick to adopt somebody else's strategy.
Yeah.
If I see something that's working, like your brother, one of the things I love that they do with the kids after they finish eating, they
Zero
do
trace.
their zero trace, leave no trace. They do the scrape, rinse, and repeat or something. I don't know. But they have like a mantra that they say, and they make sure that it's done consistently. And so figure out, like, if there's areas that you're struggling in as a parent, figure out some other people within your community that you can call on to say, hey, how do you deal with this?
Yeah.
Because we're all just figuring it out at the end of the day.
Yep.
So
That's good.
that would be my takeaway. That's my takeaway
really
for
good.
today.
I like it.
Well, thank you guys for joining us on today's episode of Wells of Wealth. We really hope that you enjoyed today's episode. If you're looking for us on social media, you can find us at Wellseem Houston. That's on Instagram and Facebook. Be sure, if you're watching us on YouTube, to like and subscribe to this video.
Make sure you subscribe.
Hit that
Hit
subscribe
the subscribe button.
Or if you're just listening in on your favorite streaming platform, be sure to leave us a review. Share with a friend, family. We love to be able to share this wealth of information with the people that you love. And we will see you next time.